Welcome back, everyone. So today I wanted to do somewhat of a part 1.5 to my video on vaccines. Uh, More specifically, I want to cover the COVID vaccines. And as you can see, today I don't have my whiteboard since I didn't think anything I would draw would necessarily add. Anything I would draw would only be things I had drawn before. So first, I'll say how the COVID vaccines work. So the COVID vaccines are the first mRNA vaccines, meaning that researchers were able to take the genome of COVID-19 and find the specific piece which coded for the production of these spike proteins that are found around the virus. And since those spike proteins are only used to identify other cells and bind to those cells to then infect them, they themselves don't have the capacity to infect us. It's like your fingernails. Your fingernails they give you maybe some grip, you can scratch things, but other than that, they don't do a whole lot. And once they cut off, they can do nothing. They're basically useless. That is the spike proteins around the COVID-19 virus. Without the actual rest of the genome, the spike proteins are useless. So in a vaccine, since it provides to your cells the mRNA sequence to make the spike protein, your ribosomes will receive this mRNA, and it'll read it and then translate it and make a protein. After that, the mRNA will degrade because it's no longer needed, and the spike protein can be presented to the B cell through several means. It can be maybe directly from the cell that made the protein, or maybe an immune cell will come along and eat the spike protein and then give it to the B cell. But regardless, the B cell now says, "What is this thing? I don't know what this is. I don't know where it came from, but I know I'll say it's bad because it shouldn't be here. So I'm gonna make this little make the antibody so I can bind to it and neutralize it because I don't want to do anything bad." So now, since your B cell has the memory and it knows what to look for, and how to make this antibody to neutralize these spike proteins, if ever you encounter the honest to goodness true fully fledged infectious COVID-19 virus, all the alarms will go off in your body and say, "Oh my gosh, look at this! Call the police, call the fire brigade, everything, call everyone." And the B cell will be like, "Oh man, I'm on the attack. I know what's happening. I got this," and it'll make this big flood of all these antibodies that'll bind to the spike proteins all around the COVID-19 virus. And without any free spike proteins, the virus can't do anything because those proteins are how it's able to bind to our cells and infect us. Like how you can use your fingernails to grab things. If you just had flesh nubs, it'd be really hard to grab things if they weren't meant to be grabbed. So yes. That's that's how the vaccine works. But now I'm going to clear up some of the a couple of common misconceptions. So I've already kind of touched on it a little bit, but the COVID-19 vaccine cannot give you COVID-19 the disease because all it's giving you is basically mRNA to make a protein. And the protein does nothing else than just bind to our cell. It can't infect you. It can do nothing than just exist and be the round peg in the round hole. That's all it is. Another thing is that the vaccine production was rushed, and that's not necessarily true. So the name for the plan to make the vaccine was Operation Warp Speed, which is a bit of an unfortunate name, but it reflects the dire need for a vaccine. So, normally vaccines are made over years, right? But the COVID vaccine, I believe, was made over only a few months. And this was in part due to the dire need, but also because there were so many people that could be used in the tests. Normally, a clinical trial to make any medication or any new research study has to find participants and screen them, and then make the groups to do the experiment. And it's several steps, where each step can take a month or more. In the case of COVID, researchers were doing the preliminary pieces of the next phase as they were doing the current phase. So while they were gathering their patients to use in tests, they were assigning them to groups. Well, not assigning them, but they were making groups. And so because they had so many people that they could use, it was a lot easier to just make the groups because they didn't have to worry so much about other factors. That gets slightly into statistics, so I won't get into it now. But just know that the vaccine was not rushed. And so now I'll briefly talk about the 3 different vaccine types you can get. So the first one is the Pfizer vaccine. There's also Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. So Pfizer and Moderna are both 2 doses, 2 weeks apart, and they're both more than 90% effective after the second dose. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is only a single dose, but it's 50% effective. Personally, I think that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are the better option, since they can give you better assurance that you won't be infected. But ultimately, if you need to get the single dose, you're not so worried about the probability of being infected. Then you can get Johnson & Johnson. But a lot of that relies on other people getting the vaccine, because if we can build up a community immunity, and even if you have 50% immunity to COVID, but everyone else around you has the 95% immunity, then it's not as big of a deal, since even if you weren't vaccinated, if everyone around you was, then you're in a bubble to protect you. But that is not an excuse not to get vaccinated. Everyone should get vaccinated, because you never know how your bubble may move around. So yeah, I'm hoping this has allayed any of your fears. I'm hoping that you can use some information that I've given to you to talk to anyone who may be slightly more hesitant about getting the COVID-19 vaccine, since we're all in this together, and I personally want to go back to a sense of normalcy. I've not enjoyed the pandemic, but I would much rather people weren't dying in hospital beds with tubes down their throats than have to worry about just partying over spring break or anything like that. Yes, we're in this together. We're almost there, and I hope that the world can soon get better. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or good evening.